Welcome back to part 3 of our live training session here with our 2004 Honda Civic Si. Now we're going to be jumping into this tutorial, taking a look at how to set up our idle control, our fuel and spark timing at idle conditions, as well as checking our ignition sync with a timing light, verifying that the engine and the Infinity are both matching in terms of spark timing as we're commanding it through the Infinity. We have a lot of things to cover here. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Welcome back to our live training session here with our K24 swapped EP3 Civic. Now, the last tutorials, we've built the base file. This tutorial, we're gonna get the engine to fire up and run. We're gonna dial in the idle control, also dialing in the fuel and spark timing at idle conditions. We need to make sure that the engine can crank, fire, and run on its own and hold and maintain its own stable idle so that we can move on to things like part throttle and wide open throttle tuning. Now, in addition to this, we're gonna take a look in this tutorial at how we can check our ignition sync between our Infinity and our engine using a timing light to verify that that sync point is correct. Now, if we jump in here real quick to Diagnostics tab, we're gonna find here that we have our trigger offset and our cam sync adjustment. And we're gonna be working with this trigger offset here and possibly updating and changing this when we lock the timing at something like 10 or 15 degrees. We use a timing light, we point it at the balancer, we'll go through that procedure, we'll see if we need to adjust what we have in our values here. Usually the default values in the file work right out of the box with a K series because there's not anything adjustable for our camera crank sensors in terms of movement. It's not like a B, D, or H series engine where it's a distributor, which can throw off then either the trigger offset or the cam sync offset. We can adjust it externally and we can also adjust it virtually. Because everything is hard fixed, the sensors bolt down to the cams, bolt into the engine, everything is essentially going to be in a reasonable range or repetitive range for almost any engine, so we have little adjustment to actually make, but we still want to check it with a timing light to verify that everything is 100%. So we'll do that once we get the engine to fire off and maintain and hold its own idle. We're going to be heavily focused on looking at our idle control, so we're going to be working with learning how to set up our idle base position table. Also then, making sure that we have proper airflow under starting so the engine can crank, fire, and run, hold its own idle, and that, again, fuel and spark timing are going to be dialed in so everything works and we have an engine that is going to be repeatable in terms of starting and idling. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is talk about doing a basic sensor check. We want to make sure that all the major sensors are reading correctly. Now, we've configured them. We know we've calibrated and configured the throttle position sensor. We know that that's right, but let's go and check out our other sensors. Map pressure sensor, coolant air temp sensors, flex fuel sensor, fuel pressure. We have those enabled. We also have our lambda sensor coming from our AEM X series inline wideband controller on the CAN input or the AEM net input to our Infinity box. So let's jump over here into our VE tuning tab and we can go look here under our text grid and take a look at some of our channels and what they're reading. So engine speed is going to be 0, normal. Engine's not running right now, so we're key on engine off. Map pressure is reading approximately 0. I'm at sea level or approximate sea level, so that's going to be accurate. We have a stock map sensor. We know it's calibrated right. Throttle position we know is right between 0 and 100%, so I'm pushing on the throttle right now. That is calibrated. Looks good. Coolant temperature showing 66 degrees. Air temperature showing 56 degrees. Now, there's a discrepancy here, a little bit of discrepancy. That's not that big of a deal. We know that the coolant temp calibration scale is accurate. The air temp calibration scale might be slightly off. It is in the ambient here in the garage about 62, 63 degrees. So it's kind of in between or the middle of both of these temp readings. So the engine's cold right now. It's not running, it's not warm. So these should be matching each other pretty close. They are apart from each other, but we know that at least the coolant calibration scale is accurate. Moving on here, Lambda 1 air fuel reading, that's showing 96.3 to 1 air fuel. That's because the wideband is reading full lean, and we're seeing as a result what that's inputting here. So we've configured that already. Going down here a little bit further, looking at our fuel pressure, showing about 27 right now. We have a 0 to 100 PSI sensor in the fuel rail. Base pressure should be anywhere between 50, 60. This is a stock returnless fuel system, so there's no adjustable regulator to adjust the pressure. It is what it is, but I have a fuel pressure sensor in there so we can compensate it and know what's going on in terms of our calculations. Flex content showing 0.42% or 42% ethanol content. That is a little bit high. I had ethanol in the fuel system and I drained it all out because I've been using this car for many live training tutorials. This is an in-house permanent car that we purchased. So I'm using it for a variety of different training tutorials for a variety of different systems. And I had ethanol in the fuel system prior to filming. I drained it out and put petrol fuel in, but I haven't ran the fuel system enough to get that fuel out of the feed line for it to have an accurate reading. So we're seeing it showing 42. It should drop down once you actually get it to fire and run. We should see this between 0 to maybe 15%. I have petrol in the fuel system right now. Battery. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.